Kia ora, g'day. Welcome back once again, here with part 11 of my reaction to Mr. Chris Vansant, former Delta Force operator, on the Shawn Ryan show. So hopefully I'll be able to complete the rest of this part 1 in this particular reaction. But don't bet on it. Anyway, let's jump in.
How did it go?
Good. Yeah, like we started out, I think we drove most of the first night just getting to the border from where we were. So we spent a night out in the desert in Saudi Arabia where we all just sort of bagged out. And it was really cold. Like I think we got a little snow that night. Like nothing that stuck, but you're in the middle of the desert and it snows. And it reminded me of, I read SAS guy, Andy McNabb's book, Bravo 20. And he talks about it in that before their incident where they got snow. And I remember thinking, wow, that's weird. Like, you don't expect to get snowed on in the desert, but yeah, we had a little snow. It was cold. We had every piece of snow gear we owned on. I was driving most of the time.
I'd be curious to know what he thought about Andy McNabb's Bravo 20 book when he read it. Because there were lots of people in the New Zealand Defence Force at the time. Bravo 20 was all the rage. Like that book was doing the rounds. I've never read it. I never had a desire to read it either. But people were talking about it a lot during my corps training in and around, but maybe not as much once I got into battalion, but there were a few people that were talking about it. And for the most part, people were just sounded like and seemed like they were in awe of what they had read and the type of work that the lads from Bravo 20 had done, the context that they were in, etc. And yeah, I never felt the drive or the desire to ever want to read that book. So I'd be curious to know what Chris thought of the book itself. Was that one of those things that inspired him at all? I'd be curious to know. Maybe Shawn's going to ask him.
A newer guy on the team. I drove the Penskower, the 6-wheeled unarmored vehicle that our team was on, and we had an ATV in our team as well. So I drove the Gower. In this case, Brad drove the ATV, and we would rotate positions. He and I driving one or the other because you couldn't drive the ATV every night because we had thumb throttles.
Yeah.
And you'd get that jello thumb from holding that throttle down all the time. But yeah, we spent the night in Saudi Arabia, moved up to the berm. They had done some aerial reconnaissance and they had found a bulldozer that was sitting all by itself in a location on the Saudi Arabian side. Who knows who it belonged to. But we had mechanics with us, which is interesting too. But in order to support our element, we needed that technical expertise. So those guys invaded right along with us on our vehicles.
Nice.
And they hot-wired the bulldozer and used the bulldozer to plow down enough of the berm that we could drive the vehicles over. And so after they had finished plowing the berm, we kind of coordinated efforts. 160th came in and all we heard, was the calls over the radio. But they basically smoked the 2 guard towers on either side, and we drove into Iraq.
That's awesome. When he's talking about bulldozers and stuff, it makes me think of when we got to, I think it's Al Assad Air Base in Iraq. Can't remember how far away it was from Baghdad itself, but probably a few hundred kilometers away from Baghdad still. But it's a big air base. And yeah, just some of the boys within the troop having the know-how and the skills to get some of I think there was a roller, may have even been a grader and a dozer, I think, as well, at that airbase. And it was used to clear what eventually became or was used as the airstrip for aircraft and stuff to come in when I forget who it was from the Australian government that flew in there. And there was a little bit of a dog and pony shoney there for those dignitaries that came in. But just listening to him speak about they had some mechanics and stuff with them. One of the guys who was my 2IC, I think his background was vehicle mechanic anyway. And then we had other guys that had been used to driving mobile plant and equipment and that sort of stuff, just who were badged operators, but they had that knowledge and skill previously. So, lots of, like this guy has rightly pointed out, grabbing and having people from different walks of life that are able to earn their way into a unit like that, Delta Force or SAS or otherwise, is making a huge asset. So hearing them talk about that and then hot wiring that and digging the berm down so that they could get up and over. Again, shout out to the work that the US troops did when we crossed over the Western Desert in 2003. thanks to the US troops clearing that berm for us.
Did you start engaging people?
No. So we didn't.
How long did it take?
I don't remember if it was the first night or the second night. So we had a series of targets planned along the way. We would drive all night, basically under night vision. We had some other technology on our side, like we had ground-based FLIR balls at the time, and
Wow.
it was the first time they were used. Other than that, it was like helos and aircraft and stuff like that. But they didn't have them on ground-based vehicles, and so we actually
Ground-based FLIR balls. What's forward-looking infrared? I think that's what it stands for. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
They had them on like I think we had 3 total for the squadron. And my vehicle was one of the ones with the FLIRs. So I had this big LCD screen between me and Chili, who was the team leader at the time. And he was sitting in the TC seat, in the passenger seat of the Gower. And so I could see everything he looked at with the FLIR ball. So that was nice.
Wow, that's awesome. We definitely didn't have those. Running nods and blinking dust and your goggles and stuff on if you needed those, depending on how much dust and stuff was kicking up. But wow, I think that's what it is. Forward-looking infrared. I can't even imagine how much how awesome that must have been. Like just listening to him say he could see everything. Wow, that's cool. I'm jealous. Definitely jealous. But in terms of Shawn Ryan's comment around did they start engaging targets, we crossed over, and it wasn't long into it, maybe 30 minutes or so, I want to say. There's a truck bouncing towards the berms, towards the border, and we stopped that thing. Didn't blow it up, not initially. Like obviously, that truck, I think them bumbling along and then them coming into us, we didn't realize, but the back was full of weapons and that sort of thing. So they must have been taking the weapons to either the other posts, the outposts along the berm, along the border, or I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they were taking them somewhere else or going to cache them or something. We don't know. But I'm pretty sure there's only 2 guys, and they got pulled out of the vehicle, put down. I remember I had the job of covering the guys, or at least one of the guys. I think there's one guy, and then another guy must have been getting covered by somebody else or getting moved around to escort and show what was in the vehicle. And then the other guy was put face down in the dirt in front of my vehicle, and then I was covering him while the other guys did their thing. And then, because we're two troops, we're 2 troop size large till we get to a point, and then we're going to break off, but we're still pretty early, so we're all pretty much in a convoy, spread out tactically, and then bump this blinking jingle truck coming along loaded with ammunition and explosives and weapons and that sort of thing. So those guys weren't dropped, left them, but the STS guys did call in air support and blow the truck up. So those guys would have been walking wherever it was they were going after that.
But either the first or second night, we had bedded down for our rest over day site. So we'd find a wadi or a depression or something to hide in, put camo netting out, put out security, and then get some rack for the day, eat some chow, etc. And we woke up to anti-aircraft fire. Like boom, 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 boom. And it went on for like 30 minutes. And it sounded like it was just over like the next rise, like it was really close. And that was probably the first, like, okay, we just invaded a country and we're at war. And it won't be long before we're involved in something. And I think if we had a big fear during all that time, it was that we were in unarmored vehicles.
You guys were in unarmored vehicles?
No armor whatsoever.
All that technology, and you had unarmored. Why did you have unarmored vehicles?
Because the platforms were built for long-range desert mobility.
Okay.
Yep. And well, he's just answered it, and hence why, we were. I think everybody in that SF space. I can't speak for 2-2. Actually, I'm not sure about what NZ were running. I don't know if NZ. Well, in Iraq, I'm not sure. I didn't bump into any of the NZ. Unfortunately, if they were there, I didn't bump into any of the NZ SAS guys if they were there in Iraq in 2003. But from what I understand, I think the Kiwi guys used a combination of unarmored and armored vehicles. I think the armored ones they got from the US, I want to say. But yeah, I'd have to ask those guys and find out. I don't know for sure. But our vehicles were unarmored. The six-wheeled LRPVs. They tried to add in some, I think the acronym was called SEC, SEC. Can't remember what that stood for. It might not have even been SEC, but I remember the stuff called SEC being put in there to try to displace, if we ran over an IED, try to displace the explosion so that it wouldn't go straight up and take out, the PC or TC, I think they call it, Team Commander, Patrol Commander, in the passenger seat, the driver, or the person in the turret, the gun turret. But yeah, I don't know how effective those would have been. Just thank goodness we didn't hit any IEDs or landmines or anything when we were in there.
We had a lot of guns. Like I think our defense was we're going to put more stuff in your direction than you can put in ours. We had some anti-tank weapons, that we brought with us. We had some crew serve stuff on top of each one of the vehicles. But yeah, unarmored vehicles, there really wasn't an option other than that to cover that kind of distance. And we were having to drive thousands of miles.
Yeah, I guess, I guess IEDs weren't like a huge thing then.
No, it wasn't even on the radar yet. And we were...
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't know that there was... Well, I think there was talk for us anyway from the Australian perspective. There already had been and was talk of IEDs because of some of the guys' experiences in Afghan prior to. And I think that's where and why that SEC stuff started being implemented into the vehicles. Like I said, thankfully, we never had any IEDs or never ran over any landmines or anything like that during my time there. So we never had to test how good or how well the SEC would stand up.
Literally driving across the desert. It wasn't like we were on roads. Like we were navving across open desert.
Okay.
And then, so that anti-aircraft fire that first morning, and then shortly after, I think we hit our first target, which was an Iraqi outpost, an ammo supply point. So it was basically just like you see at airfields, like in the US, where they have like all of the bunkers all over. It was one of those that was used for storing ammunition. And yeah, we did a hit on basically the guard outpost where they were. It was the first time some shots were fired, and I was driving, so I drove up to the target house. Some stuff happened in the beginning, and some couple of Iraqi guards were shot, and then we made entry into the facility, but it was minimal skeleton crew out there. And then we proceeded to clear basically every bunker in the ammo supply point looking for WMD. So doing what we were tasked to do.
Interesting hearing him speak about that. It must have still been the case, in terms of the area where we were too. Like the one that led to, like I would say, the largest contact that I personally have been in was the lead up to that was a comms tower that was seen, a small little comms tower, which was sort of an opportunity target. Really, it wasn't like. As far as I'm aware, it wasn't anything that had been briefed to us that we're going to go to this known little comms tower space and look to disrupt it. I think it was something that caught our attention along our line of access, our travel of access to go deeper into Iraq and look in certain areas for weapons of mass destruction or Scud missiles and that sort of thing. And then we saw that. Anyway, we decided, let's go and investigate that. Went there, other guys went in, so I was on the turret of my vehicle, and there were several other vehicles, and the guys that were closest obviously dismounted their vehicle, still left the driver, I think, in their vehicle, and then the guys went in and did the assault in there, or the clearance. Literally caught, there was two guys in there, weapons next to them, soldiers, must have been for the Iraqi forces, but they, from what I recall, those guys were asleep. But they were definitely awake once the guys entered. So because they were asleep, because they weren't posing a threat, they weren't dropped, they didn't get shot. Dragged out though, and then intelligence gathering started to happen from within that tower. And then next minute, that's when little dust cloud off in the distance, and we're looking out because we're still watching out other areas, right? We're not just all focused in on there. We know that the boys are doing their job. The rest of us have got our jobs to do. And we're looking out. Then we see these little dust clouds building up out in the distance. And then they're coming towards us next minute. There's blanking rounds and, RPGs and stuff starting to come towards our location. And so, we know we're in a contact now. The lads would have dealt with those other two cable tied, do whatever they needed to do with them, and then we're back in vehicles and then fanning out. And like what Chris said, we're going to send more ordnance and ammunition your way than what you send our way. And then we're into the contact and into the fight from there, and we're assaulting forward. We weren't retreating like the tank story that I spoke about. Lincoln, after not having any sleep for probably, I want to say, the first 3 days or close to 3 days, when we're inserting in, and then being rudely awoken when one of the boys says, "Tank!" And we thought, what the heck? What the truck? Jumped up, grabbed our whatever stuff we had, and then into the vehicles, and then we're bugging out of there. We didn't want to be taking on a tank with our blinking non-armored vehicles, our light-skinned vehicles. So, yeah, anyway, is that the parts that I wanted to talk about when I was listening to some chat just then? Yeah, I think that'll do for now.
And that sort of continued for a while. We did that at numerous locations, some with a little more activity than others. In a lot of cases, we would pull up short, use the flare ball, and call in close air support, and drop a bunch of bombs on an objective before we would move in. So,
yeah, we did that a few times too. And that was the blessing of having, well, we didn't have the flare ball. I think it is forward-looking infrared. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what it stands for. Because I think that's what I want to say. Ryan Fugit, Combat Story podcast host, former Apache pilot gunship, and CIA. So, where was I going with that? Yeah, so we sort of did. We didn't have a flare ball, but we would utilize STS to call in air support onto suspected targets, or either suspected / known targets, or areas of interest that were deemed to be military type facilities before, give us an advantage before going in and looking to clear some of those areas. We didn't do that on every target. Actually, probably most targets we didn't, but we did do it on a few. There's one there where I think he was Major at the time, went on to be the CO, but Burnsy from the Australian Regiment speaks about, I think he spoke about it in Bravery and Betrayal. One of the things where we didn't drop any bombs, there's this large facility where he got called in, got the STS guy, I think, called in aircraft, a jet, to come in and go blink and break the sound barrier, so to speak, over the top of this area. They flew in pretty low and gave a blinking almighty crack as it flew past, just to see what reaction would come from that particular facility that we were looking at from a distance. He didn't call in any bombs or anything like that to drop on it. He just, come and put the wind up them, let them know that we've got a fast jet out here, and if they're going to do anything stupid, and or if people are going to bomb burst and start scattering out of there, if they were military people, because they might have been worried about being bombed, then that would have given us the advantage to see, okay, yeah, there are a number of military people here, and then we can start trying to get an understanding of what they've got and potentially who we may have wanted to go after, if that was the case. But so yeah, I think people think that operators are going in and then just calling in bombs on everything. That looks suspicious, let's call a bomb on there before we go in there. That's not the case at all. And you've even heard people like Jay Cal talk about it as well on the Shawn Ryan show. He said, how about we just tell them to come out, otherwise we're going to drop a bomb on there. And I think he said that they started to work, or words to that effect. I probably butchered how it was that he described it, but words to that effect, which makes a lot of sense. And I think, people that may not be aware, and or, you're never going to convince everybody, but those that may not be aware, there's more than one way to skin the cat,
Different mindset than we were used to, as a counterterrorism force or a hostage rescue force or whatever we were basically doing, infantry tactic raid style missions on these compounds. So that was a little different.
Yeah.
And kind of cool just to do full, the full gamut. But we definitely owned the night. We could see them miles and miles before they could see us. And we definitely had, there wasn't anybody in country yet. So we had all the air assets. I think we were in country for 4 days when the first volley of Tomahawk missiles and all that stuff got fired into Iraq, and when they started the push from the south. So we had been in country for a little bit and done a few things before any of the regular invasion actually started.
Damn, that's pretty fucking cool, man. I mean, that's U.S. history.
Next.
Oh,
on the Shawn Ryan Show.
Okay, cool. That must be the end of part 1. That is very cool, listening to him speak about that. I mean, we didn't have the flare, but what we did use was, because we had the javelin and you had the clue that clips into the javelin rocket itself, that you then sit and look through, and it's got this big lens in the front, and you're looking through at the back, and you've got the controls, and that sort of stuff gave us a tool. We would often use that at night time as part of our sentry, or as, you know, lights fading and that sort of thing, to use it to scan the areas to give us as much early warning as we could. You know, NVGs, the ones that at least we had, you know, limitations to them, let's say. So that clue, which would be attached to the javelin, became a really good tool. So leave the rocket detached. Excuse me. Take the clue out of the box, which was separate anyway. We didn't travel around with it already attached to a rocket or anything like that. It was in its own box, Pelican box. Pull out the clue, whip that up, turn it on, and then use that to scan the area. But yeah, as and when, and if we needed to, because of the training and the reps and stuff that had been put into it, when it came time, and if we felt like we needed to use it in contact, then the boys knew what to do. Unfortunately, we didn't all have like a clue each. So the clue was what the control unit to be able to launch your javelin missile. So in my team, the senior operator, who also had the 50 cal, awesome guy, he also received the Medal of Gallantry. I think I've spoken about that before. He had the clue. He had a few javelin rockets. I had some spare javelin rockets on my vehicle. And then it was the same with the other teams. Like, there was a clue between their patrol. It sounds funny saying a clue. Who's got a clue? Javelin rockets between both vehicles, and then the same with the others. So we didn't, unfortunately, just the way it was, there wasn't enough for every vehicle to have the ability to all launch a javelin missile at the same time or from every vehicle. So there was just one between the two vehicles, at least during my time anyway. But those pieces of kit were definitely worth their weight in gold. All the kit that we had, to be fair. So yeah, wow. Interesting too, listening. Sounds like Chris and them were there several days or maybe weeks before the rest of the main invasion into Iraq happened. So that may have been us as well. They may have already been in there before we then crossed as well. We were definitely out in the Western Desert, making our way, making the punch and the push towards Baghdad and towards our areas of responsibility. But during my deployment, we never got the green light to punch into Baghdad itself. So yeah, we were a few kilometers short of getting right into Baghdad, but you know, did our job for what we needed to do out there in the Western Desert. Nobody, or us, we never found any WMDs, and as it turns out, nobody did. But it was a great experience. It was just, yeah, the stuff that happened. Really, like for me, I couldn't have asked for anything better. Like, you got a taste of operations, figured out and found out a bit about yourself individually and collectively, more about your team. And with that, you earned more credibility and trust, and you gained more trust and respect from your team members, and you gave more trust and respect to your team members. And you knew that you were, for me anyway, you knew that you were in the right place in terms of the work that you signed up for, and that this is the type of work that you want to do. So yeah, and that's just some really good memories about that. So I'm interested to hear what happens in part 2, and no doubt it's going to be more awesome stuff in regards to Chris's experiences and what he's been involved in. And I'm looking forward to hearing it. So thank you very much for your time and for stopping by, and for your support. If you haven't already, and if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I know I'm not very good at doing this, but I am trying to get better. Then I invite you to subscribe to the channel. It is a huge help to me and to the channel. And I did have a look at the analytics, and it shows that there's 52% of people that spend some time here on my channel watching the content that I do that are unsubscribed. And that to me was just pretty mind-blowing. So yeah, anyway, if you feel like subscribing, feel free. If not, all good. So that being said, look after yourselves. Thanks once again, and you'll see me on the next one.